Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the organizing coordinator and water justice organizer here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Before we get started today, I'd like to do a very brief land acknowledgement as usual. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, it's important to remind ourselves that we do gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I am joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. So if you are unsure of whose land you are on and you would like to learn more and find out, you can always visit native-land.ca to check it out. So thank you all again for returning for another episode of Environmental Justice Now. As we enter summer, it's now officially the end of June. We can expect a lot more hotter temperatures as we enter July, August, and historically, we know that this year can be, is looking to be one of the hottest on record. So that leaves us now in a position where we're thinking about even just the wildfires that happened a few weeks ago and a long list of other cases of extreme weather events that have been happening abroad and here locally in the state of Virginia. The realities of climate change are becoming very much increasingly difficult to ignore, which now means we're in a position of what are we going to do about it, right? What actions are we taking to make sure that our summers don't continue to get hotter and these cases of extreme weather don't continue to increase? And it also makes us wonder, what does this mean for our future and for the generations to come, the people who are here now? I myself am 25 years old, and I'm also wondering what my future is going to look like. Will I have a family? Will I have a climate that is able to actually be habitable in the years to come? And so I know a lot of youth are feeling similarly, especially folks that are even younger than me. And I know that luckily we have so many awesome youth activists locally here in Virginia, but also globally, trying to make things happen and trying to make changes so that we do have a habitable future. And so today I have the pleasure and the privilege of being here with some youth activists here and based in Richmond, Virginia. They are a group called GreenTeenz RVA. And I'm so excited to chat more with GreenTeenz about their organization and the work they're doing, and what brought them to youth climate activism in the first place. Thanks so much for joining, you all. There's three of you here, and it would be awesome if you all could just take a brief moment to introduce yourselves. So Camille, would you like to share first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. But yeah, my name is Camille Kidwell. I'm one of the co-founders and co-presidents of GreenTeenz RVA. I graduated from Freeman High School last year, and now I'm a rising sophomore at Loyola University Chicago, and I'm majoring in environmental policy. So yeah, thank you again.
Awesome. Okay. Maya, do you want to share?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having us here today. My name is Maya Zasler. I graduated from collegiate school, and I'm an incoming dual degree student at Columbia University and Sciences Po, and I'm planning on pursuing a bachelor's degree in economics and in sustainable development.
Awesome. What about you, Christina?
Hi, everyone. Thank you again. Likewise to my co-founders and my co-presidents. We really appreciate being able to come here today and speak and just talk about climate justice and youth activism. And I'm super excited for this conversation. My name is Christina Kong. I am a rising second year at the University of Virginia, and I'm planning to double major in economics and public policy.
Awesome. It's so great to hear so many of you all so interested. Well, it's interesting to hear just the duality that exists within the environmental space. It's intersectional in so many ways. So thank you all again for joining us today. Just going off of you all's origin story, perhaps, the beginnings of GreenTeenz RVA. You all shared that you're all co-founders. So could you share a little bit more about how GreenTeenz RVA came to be and the work that you all are doing?
Yeah, so basically, the three of us, we all kind of know each other from different spaces. So Camille and I went to like high school together. We both went to Freeman, and Maya and I figure skated together. And so we all kind of knew that we all like were interested in environmental activism and especially like political activism in general, especially growing up in a time that is like pretty politically, active and also like a lot happening politically. And so for that, that's like kind of what I guess sparked the three of us wanting to work together. And when we first met, we like watched this documentary called 50 Minutes to Save the World. And that talked a lot about climate change and how our climate is changing and like what is happening and what human activity is like causing it to happen. And that was kind of like an inspiring factor that like helped us, I guess, want to start GreenTeenz.
Definitely. That film was really unifying in, unfortunately, anxiety and fear, but those tend to be pretty great motivating factors. And that was in August 2019. So it's been 4 years now. And GreenTeenz was this idea that we were able to turn into reality pretty much when COVID hit, because there weren't many opportunities for us to pursue because everything had shut down. So we started all virtually, then segued into doing safe events with masks, and found that we could create this community and bring people together centered around a shared passion. So although it started with the three of us, it's really grown in a really amazing way.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think a big part of our motivating factor is that we were all, younger teenagers. We weren't able to vote. And so we were thinking about how can we really create change in our community, even though we don't have a political voice. Well, we do have a political voice, but, not really having like a vote to, really
Yes.
politics. So that was kind of our big motivating factor that really led us to where we are today. And now that we are able to vote, even better.
Yes, and I know voting in itself is also great to hear you mention that, because I know for our generation, voting can seem a very much disillusioned process. How we've seen our democracy fail us in many ways. So being able to act even outside of that, I think, is huge. So I think that the work that you all are doing is definitely needed, and I hope that folks have been paying attention. So as far as where your interest came from, just into the climate activism space in general, I know you all spoke to this a bit already, but would you guys like to share a bit more about how specifically your interests in climate activism derive from? What brought you there outside? If there's anything else you'd like to add.
Well, so Christina mentioned the documentary 50 Minutes to Save the World, which really focuses on coral reef ecosystems and the effects of detrimental anthropogenic activities on those ecosystems. But that sort of triggered a snowball effect in research and trying to learn more about the different effects of climate change and how it affects our community. And through every event that we've organized, different incredible groups that we've been able to collaborate with, I feel like all of us have learned so much more and learned of different ways that we can take action. And also in Richmond, I mean, there's such I don't know if rich is the right word, but significant and upsetting history where you have incidents of environmental racism and communities that have been systemically disinvested in, and how the climate crisis affects those communities as well as us, all in it together, but in it in different ways. And so that all goes to say, the more research that we've done and the more that we've learned, it kind of keeps us going and keeps us wanting to do more. And education is just a really big piece of that.
Yeah, and like adding on to Maya's point, it was like really interesting to learn that Richmond is like the third largest asthma capital in the world, and that is so insane to think about, and to see like how the deliberate policies of like the past and even today are like impacting communities of color, and how a lot of those communities are still being left behind in like environmental policy and stuff like that. And in a lot of ways, it seems like environmentalism is kind of, it seems like it's a space for a lot of like white activism, and so it's kind of, I feel like environmental justice and environmental racism is so important because it talks about how communities of color are being impacted and then what needs to be done in order to like take different communities and make sure that everyone is able to live a sustainable future.
Yeah, and adding on to that, all of this research that we've done inspired us to create a documentary with another organization called Outspoken Narrative. They're another youth-led independent film organization. And so we worked to create a documentary on environmental racism, specifically here in Richmond, highlighting Windsor Farms and Jackson's Ward. And we got to interview members of the community. It was really inspiring. And it's on YouTube if you want to go stream it.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's great. I actually had no idea about the documentary. I would love to check that out. And I think, just speaking to all of y'all's points, and working as an advocate at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, a lot of the times what we see, we specifically focus on environmental justice here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. So we see those cases of environmental racism, environmental injustices all across the state of Virginia. In a lot of ways, it can tend to be like whack-a-mole, which is very upsetting, unfortunately. Just seeing how so many various communities, from urban settings like Jackson Ward to even more rural settings, all are facing various injustices, whether that be through something like landfills, pipelines, even not having access to water or energy, having to pay more for energy, energy burden, dealing with that. The list goes on, unfortunately. But I think that, when we're talking about activism and, in the environmental space, it unfortunately still tends to be quite white, as one of you mentioned. However, we know that vulnerable groups like communities of color, lower income communities are the most impacted by these environmental injustices. So we can't talk about environmentalism and making progress without talking about those communities. This movement in itself is intersectional. So as we try and make progress within one, we have to hopefully also make progress and make sure within the vulnerable communities that I've just mentioned a second ago. One can't happen without the other. And I think what you all are doing, the fact that you're mentioning that, is great to hear, because a lot of the times as well, when we're thinking about environmentalism, people tend to think about conservation alone, instead of the people who are also inhabiting those spaces. So, so crucial, so crucial. So I also was wondering, in addition to the documentary, what type of other events do you all have, or even if you don't want to share specifically the type of events that you all have, you can also maybe just speak more to how you decided to show up within your own communities to pursue environmental justice, in addition to the documentary.
So, Leah, actually what you were just talking about ties in pretty perfectly to what we've been working on most recently. We've been collaborating with the Henrico Conservation Action Network to try and get Henrico County to adopt a comprehensive climate plan. And we've really been advocating for resiliency being incorporated into that. So not just carbon emission inventory, but also different practices that other counties in Virginia and Richmond City, you have RVA Green 2050, different plans that have been set in place and adopted and then now are being executed, which is the most important part. It can't just all be in the literature. But we provide action-oriented volunteer opportunities for Richmond youth. And it started off being more teen geared, but we've working our way into the political sphere a bit. So we've broadened out. We've done civic engagement nights. We've worked with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We held a mock trial to illustrate the importance of the judicial branch in climate action and climate legislation. We have done documentary screenings. We made that environmental justice documentary. We also do biannual roadside cleanups through the Adopt a Highway program and trash cleanups, getting people out there and making a little difference on an individual level.
Awesome.
Yeah, the biannual cleanups are like one of my favorite activities that we do as an organization, because it's so fun to, gather people together, especially youth, and we can have conversations in small groups as we work to clean up different areas. We clean up Coaxon Road. That's the road that we have adopted through the Virginia Adopt a Highway system. So yeah, I really have enjoyed getting to know and getting to meet youth from all over Richmond and kind of have different conversations about the environmental movement. So yeah.
Wow, you guys are definitely staying busy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't forget. We also run a blog through our website. So that is the other education piece. When we started on Instagram, it was really advocating for sustainable living on an individual level, even though I want to clarify the responsibility for taking on the climate crisis and climate change does not exclusively fall on consumers and on us. But still, I think that providing small steps to take can make it the issue and the consequences seem less scary. So we do that. We also try and keep people updated and like discussing the election that just happened on June 20th for supervisors and House of Delegates, the Senate on the state level.
And adding on to Maya's point, I feel like education is like one of the most important parts of GreenTeenz. And so we also have had the opportunity to help like teach youth about like different climate change issues with like another organization. And so we got to like talk about climate justice and about like bees and like random subjects that like little kids might be interested in or like might not know about. And so we can help introduce them to those things. And it's not necessarily just educating others, but also like wanting to educate ourselves. And so it's awesome that we get to like meet a lot of cool people who are already doing so much amazing work in like climate justice and climate activism as a whole, and like hear their stories and in general feel more inspired to like take action, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I love this focus on education. I think that's one of the most empowering things within this work. And that's one of the things we focus on as well, especially dealing with, vulnerable communities of color, lower income communities. You find that in a lot of cases of environmental justices happening within their own communities, they may not, the issue may even just be a lack of education on the issue, or rather information being held or purposefully in some cases being kept quiet so that folks don't know about their air being toxic or their water being toxic or a harmful pipeline coming into their community. So education, I definitely think, is huge. It's a major starting block to activism and making changes within our own communities. So, and especially working with even the youngest of the youngest, helping them to make those connections from an earlier age is definitely something that we know will continue to be just so crucial as years go on, and in hopes to create a future for ourselves and for our environments. So that is so great to hear. And I didn't know that you all either were working on the climate plan in Henrico County. I had just heard about that not too long ago. So that's also awesome to hear. Great. So I think now that we've talked a little bit more about just the types of things that we've even noticed as far like the general issues within communities, the long list that exists of burdens when we're thinking about environmental justice, when we're thinking about our climate, our futures. I think it would be maybe great to hear more about you all's hopes for your own generation and for the future. What do you all envision, other than hopefully, being healthy and thriving?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a little silly, but we were talking before this call and just saying that wanting clean air to breathe and clean water. And I mean, sounds like such basic needs, but part of this fight together is that, it shouldn't just be about necessities. It should also be about having a higher quality of life. And that clean air, I mean, just recently with the Canadian wildfires, like went outside and couldn't see the sun. My friends wanted to go to the James River, and I said, I mean, it's smog. There are pollutants in the air. I don't know how safe that is to do today. And so that's on a more global scale. And obviously the exacerbation of wildfires, I mean, that's not us on a local level. It is exacerbated by rising global temperatures that's happening from fossil fuels burning. But before going down that rabbit hole, I mean, there are things that we can do locally to take advantage of the outdoor spaces and move away from transportation methods that require excess burning of fossil fuels, improving public transportation, making cities more walkable, more sidewalks, which there have been great efforts in recent years, making bike lanes safer.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah. Adding on to Maya, I think for me, being outside was a really big part of my childhood, and it's still a really big part of my life today. And I would want the future generations to be able to spend as much time or more time outside in a safe way, as I did. It's so important to, just really be involved with nature, and it should be available for everyone, not just, higher classes. So that's definitely one of my big hopes for the future, is to, keep outdoor spaces safe and readily accessible.
I guess also on a more like political level, I would love to see like politicians take into account like youth activism more, and also like wanting to prioritize sustainability and also resiliency into like climate action, like policy goals and stuff like that. And it's like, with the Henrico Climate Plan, I would love to see, that being implemented, and like being able to show that, we as, I guess, Americans like care about climate change, and that we want to make sure that we're like changing how our system is set up in order to like support different communities while also like protecting our planet.
Absolutely. I think you guys hit on all the most immediate, like, necessary things, especially emphasis on not just living a life, but living a one of quality. We all deserve that. Don't we all have a right to that outside of just the basic necessities of just being a functioning human? But I think also, unfortunately, our politicians seem to be ignoring that basic ideal. The fact that we all deserve the chance at that, to thrive in our lives, and not taking what so much of, especially our youth, has been saying about wanting to take action on our climate. To not just preserve ourselves now, but to make sure we have something that will last, especially when we consider, I guess, to your point, Camille, the fact that our outdoors is kind of withering away right in front of us. Even here in Virginia, half of Norfolk is already flooding. So much of the Hampton Roads area is flooding. Sea level rise is only going to increase, even here in the Richmond area. And I think we even saw, like, I can't remember how long ago it was now, but we start to see with these increased instances of storms, rainfall, just our infrastructure not being able to keep up. So in turn, we're just kind of falling apart a little bit. So just I think, trying to take all of that information into account is going, as we move forward, and is going to be so necessary. And I would hope for the same things as well, that we still have our politician takes these things seriously. We still have an outdoors that we're able to enjoy, that everyone's able to enjoy, not just the wealthy and privileged, all those things. So, in all of this struggle, what continues to give you all maybe comfort or hope? I know for myself personally, it can be it can be quite a heavy weight sometimes, especially when you're thinking about things in the grand scheme. So, what helps to give you all comfort in this work?
For me, I think it's like the people who are like continuing to fight for climate justice and who are already so invested and put like people like you know what I mean, who are like taking action in order to like help save our planet. And so like being able to meet like different people who are like so passionate about climate change and about climate activism and seeing the work that they're doing is really inspiring. And like that is what continues, like hearing their stories is what helps me like push through and like want to make a change.
It's been such a privilege to work with different people and to get to know the different grassroots efforts and the amazing things that are being done on a community level. And to circle back to what you were saying, Leah, and also with the environmental justice documentary, we did air quality data collection with the Virginia Science Museum and walked through Windsor Farms, and we walked through Jackson Ward, and just feeling the difference when you're in those spaces and breathing the air, and then seeing the lack of public green spaces, which then also saying at the beginning of this show how we're averaging a record number of heat days. I mean, green spaces help alleviate that and alleviate the stress. There are solutions, and just knowing like people who know that and people who are willing to do the work to implement it, even it's sort of bypassing politics a little bit. I think now it's unfortunately taken sort of these consequences that we're feeling now to push people to acknowledge our reality that we're living in. But I do think that it's now becoming much more difficult to ignore. And so it gives me hope to know that now it's not about denial. It's about problem solving and figuring out how to implement the solutions on a larger scale. And like Christina said, those connections mean so much.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think at GreenTeenz in general, we've created a community where we can all come together and really, talk about what's going on. Climate anxiety is a real thing. And so with GreenTeenz and our meetings, we will sometimes just take a few minutes to be like, all right, let's talk about these wildfires. Like, let's talk about everything like that. So I think it's really important to, stay connected with the people around you and really talk about how you can all make change and make a better future. And I think our generation everyone's worried about it. It's at the forefront of everyone's minds. And I think that this generation, there's a lot of hope that, we're going to prioritize this instead of profit, moving forward. So.
Absolutely. I think I would totally agree with all of you that a lot of hope in this work definitely comes from the strength in I guess the movement, the strength within activism and collaborating with others, and honestly also just the joy in activism along the way, or even just anger. I know a couple weeks ago we just went to a rally protesting the MVP, and just seeing how personal it is for so many people. It's not just politics. Like, this is people's lives we're talking about here. So it can be just a lot of ways rejuvenating, and it remains you focused in purpose. And I think even though our politicians are kind of unfortunately breezing past a lot of that passion, the fact that it's there at all, and I think it's continuing to grow, is very exciting and very telling. I'm hoping that it's only up from here, because we can't afford to go backwards. So I love to hear that. And thank you all so much for this conversation. It's been so amazing to learn so much about you all and all of the amazing things that you all are doing. You are definitely staying busy. It's amazing. And I'm hoping that you continue to grow and others continue to get involved. So I just want to take some time now to pass it to you guys for a second, for you to share any upcoming opportunities maybe for folks to get involved with you all. I know you mentioned the documentary, and we have your website here for folks to check out, the blog and all that good stuff. But are there any upcoming events or anything else you all would like to plug for anyone watching?
Follow our Instagram.
Okay, follow Instagram.
Yeah, our Instagram's gonna have like a lot of our information, and so we'll be posting about like different opportunities there, and also it's gonna be like kind of a bank of like everything that we've already done. So if people want to learn about that, yeah.
We'll be announcing like cleanup dates. We also have some plans in the work for this summer for possible civic engagement night. Now that I'm saying it here, it has to happen. So just to stay tuned.
Yeah, we're also recruiting members for the upcoming year. So if there are any youth or Richmond high schoolers, anyone who's interested in joining GreenTeenz, you can send us an email at GreenTeenz, that's teens with a Z, RVA at gmail.com. And we would love to invite you to our next meeting. And
Yeah, feel free
for having us.
Feel free to send us a DM too if that's easier. Whatever means you need to like get it to us, like we will be checking all of our platforms, ready to, accept more people.
You guys are active and looking for folks to join. Yes. Okay, great. People will stay, hopefully connect with you all. And yeah, be a part of everything that you all have going and plan for the future. So yes, thank you all again. I'm hoping that we're able, this will just be a start of conversation or a start of working together. It would be great to continue to connect with you all. And yeah, as usual, for everyone else watching, if you haven't already, please feel free to join our supporters list here at VIPL at this link here, if you're not already, where you can stay in the know of everything that we're up to. And we will see you all next week, same time, same place.